Okay, I'm back. This is part 3 of the video on the myth of Prometheus, the slideshow, and we're going to shift hopefully to look at some passages from Homer's Odyssey. But let's go back to the slideshow, and this is where we ended up last time with the punishment of Prometheus, the beginning of the punishment of Prometheus, which is Zeus's decision to punish him for the theft of fire and the gift of fire to man. So here's Hephaestus binding Prometheus. Talked about that in the last video, but here's the second stage, and this is what we don't see in Miller's novel. After he leaves the halls of Helios and the whipping of the Fury, he is sent to this mountain, and he is bound to a rock on top of the mountain, and every day a raven, I believe, a large bird, I believe it's a raven, a crow, a vulture, flies down and eats Prometheus's liver. So here is a later European representation of the bird eating Prometheus's liver. And then at night the bird flies off, and Prometheus, since he is a god, he grows back a new liver. And then the next day the bird returns to eat his liver again. This is the horrible, gruesome punishment of Zeus. That Zeus metes out on Prometheus. And he is suffering for us, right? Now, Zeus's initial idea is that he will suffer this way to eternity, that this will be Prometheus's existence to eternity. He will have his liver eaten by a bird every day. That's Zeus's original idea, right? To get back at Prometheus for stealing fire and giving it to man. Right? So what is the meaning of Prometheus' suffering? He's suffering for us. He's a kind of martyr for mankind, a Greek martyr for mankind, a god who opposes the authority and the will of Zeus on behalf of us by liberating us. He liberates us in a way by giving us fire. He frees us up to become our true selves, right? To realize our full potential. Art, culture, architecture, all of that comes from Prometheus, right? The Promethean gift to us. And for that, he suffers this way on a rock. Here is another image of suffering. Prometheus, a vase painting or a dish painting of Prometheus and the bird eating his liver. And there's Atlas, another god who suffers. He is given the task of holding up the heavens, preventing the heavens from collapsing on earth. So he's sort of separating the heavens from the earth, right? He carries the heavens on his back, right? Atlas is often represented as carrying the earth on his back, but he's bearing the burden of the earth and holding it up so it doesn't get crushed by the weight of the heavens. That's the image there. He does that for us too. Atlas does that for us, right? Because earth is where we dwell. That's for human beings and the other animals, right? The gods sort of dwell high up on the mountains and in the sky and down below, and they play on earth. But the earth, in some sense, it's for us. It's for human beings. And so again, Atlas suffers for us, just as Prometheus suffers for us. And then finally, here's an image. If you read Hesiod's Theogony to the end, there's a reference to Heracles. There's many references to Heracles, the Greek hero, who is a son of Zeus. But he performs many labors to kind of protect the path of virtue, right? He's sort of preserving the path of virtue for mankind, right? He kills off many monsters. He performs many great labors, in some sense, for the rest of us, right? He bears that burden. But toward the end of his life, Heracles is the one who, in many of the tales, goes up to the mountain and shoots the bird with an arrow and unbinds Prometheus and sets him free. So it is Heracles, right? The human hero who sets Prometheus, the god who has suffered for us, free, liberates him. And for this, Heracles is made immortal, right? So on many of the stories, Heracles, like Utnapishtim, is chosen by the gods to become immortal. For all of the labors that he performed and for setting Prometheus free. Right? For that, he becomes himself an immortal. Not a god, right? But just that he won't die. So Heracles doesn't become a god, but he won't die, just like Utnapishtim won't die. Okay, so that's the end of the myth and the end of this slideshow. I just wanted to turn to an important passage in Circe, where we see evidence that Circe really models herself on Prometheus, the Promethean story, the suffering of Prometheus, witnessing the suffering of Prometheus, right, transforms her. And so this is toward the end of chapter 6. And it's the moment after she has confessed to her father that she used the pharmaca, the herbs, to transform Glaukos into a god and to transform Scylla into a monster. She believes that these herbs that she discovered, if used properly, I think it's like the nectar from the flower, actually, if used properly, can transform a person into their true self, right? Now, she found these flowers growing on an island, and she had to listen to stories from her uncles about the war between the Titans and the Olympians, because the story is that these flowers grew from the blood of the Titans, the blood that fell from the sky when the Olympians defeated the Titans, or, when they warred with them. All of the blood falling from the sky, right, fertilized the ground of some of these islands, and out of the blood, the god's blood, out of the Titan blood, which is in the earth, right, these flowers grew. So the power of these flowers, the power of this herb, comes from the blood of the Titans. Sort of interesting. And so she finds out from stories about the battle, from her uncles who fought in the battle, where some of this blood was shed. And she goes to that island, and she that's how she finds the herbs, the flowers. And then she uses them. And so she believes that she has the power of the pharmaca, right? Which in this scene, Aeetes, her brother, who has returned, okay, to help restore some order in the house, right? To help, he has gone off to marry, and he lives in a separate kingdom now, but he returns because the father is upset to learn that his children from his wife Perse have these powers, and he's worried that Zeus will punish his family because this is the power of the pharmaca that comes from the earth that the children of Helios seem to have, and it kind of threatens the balance of power that Zeus is trying to maintain. And so Helios wants to make sure that his children don't abuse this power. And so Aeetes has come to kind of reassure his father. But part of the story for Helios is like, no, the power doesn't really exist, or it's not a really legitimate power. But right, that story doesn't work anymore when your daughter confesses to what she's done, right? So, right, Helios wants to try to present this as, well, something happened, we're not really sure what happened. My children didn't really mean to do any harm. They don't really embody or embrace these powers, so don't worry about it, Zeus. But, right, Circe confesses to what she's done. I did it. It was me. Right? It wasn't an accident. It wasn't the fate of Glaukos to become a god. It wasn't the fate of Scylla to become a monster. I did it, and I did it with this newfound power. Look at me, Circe. I have the power, right? It's that kind of moment, right? The daughter speaking to the father and wanting to, proud of who she is and wanting to take responsibility for what she's done and confessing, right? She is willing to risk her own punishment, right? In order to tell the truth about what happened and to take responsibility for what she's done. And so this should remind you of something, right? This is what Prometheus did, right? And Aeetes, her brother, who's shrewd and calculating and all about power and control, right? She raised him, right? She raised Aeetes when he was a little boy, and he was her first kind of project, right? And they had a real bond. And she's heartbroken when Aeetes is married off and sent away. She misses him. And then in the intervening years, she meets Glaukos, right? And that doesn't go very well. But now Aeetes has returned, her younger brother, who she loves. But he doesn't understand why she confessed, why she admitted. Right? You should have just pretended that it was an accident, right? Don't present yourself as a sorcerer. do the work of sorcery, but behind the scenes, right? Don't admit to what you're doing. That's, and everything will be okay. So this is what Aeetes says at the bottom of 75, up top of 76, right? Why did you tell our father about what you've done? I hope you didn't tell him what you did to help Prometheus, right? This is a story that he knows, right? Aeetes learned long ago that Circe helped Prometheus. She shared that with her younger brother, but he's like, I hope you didn't tell the father, right? Because that's another sort of act of defiance, right? He would be very upset to know that you, behind his back, right, helped Prometheus when Prometheus was supposed to be being punished in his house for Zeus, right? So no, I didn't tell him about that. Why he accused her of being foolish? Why are you so foolish, right? I suppose I should take you as my tutor and deny everything, she says. I should just deny what I did to Glaucus and Scylla, deny that I have this power. He says, yes. He said, yes, deny it. That's how it works, Circe. I tell father that my sorcery was an accident. He pretends to believe me, and Zeus pretends to believe him. And so the world is balanced. Right? This is the world that Aeetes lives in, a world of lies and deceit, where everything hangs in the balance because nobody tells the truth about anything. Everyone pretends to be something that they're not. Right? And as long as Zeus doesn't have to acknowledge that the children of Helios have this power, right? He can not punish them for it, and maintain this sort of diplomatic relationship between the Olympians and the Titans that is so important to everyone. And he says, it is your own fault for confessing and throwing everything out of balance, right? Why did you do that? I will never understand. These are exact words that Circe spoke to Prometheus when she learned that he didn't ask for mercy, and he in fact confessed to his crime and brought his punishment on himself, right? It was true, he would not, right? He will never understand me. Aeetes, my little brother, will never understand me. He had not been born when Prometheus was whipped. He didn't. I'm older than him. I'm wiser than him. I meant to tell you, he said. I finally met your Glaucus last night. I have never seen such a buffoon, right? He doesn't understand why she fell for him. I hope you will choose better ahead. You have always trusted too easily. Okay, this is a moment where we see again, Circe is not like the other gods, right? She doesn't want to live in the world that Aeetes lives in, which is sort of sustained by lies, right? She, like Prometheus, confesses to what she's done, right? Why? And she knowingly brings on the punishment. Her father now banishes her. She is banished from the house, and she has to live alone on an island far away. That is, she will live in exile now as a result of confessing to what she did with the Pharmaca. Okay, but this is the lot that she chose, right? Circe doesn't want to live a life of lies. She doesn't want to live in the world that is balanced by pretense, right? Where people are not honest about who they are and what they care about and what they believe in, right? She wants to live in the world in which truth matters, right? And she is willing to suffer for that. She is willing to experience pain, the pain of exile. She would rather live a life of exile, suffer a life of exile, than live comfortably in her parents' house, right? But living a lie. Okay, so we have here, she's learned something from Prometheus. Prometheus would rather suffer on top of that rock, having the eagle or the bird eating his liver every day, okay, than let Zeus get away with his abuse of power and let humans suffer, right? Without fire, life is hard, right? Prometheus makes our life easier. He eases our pain, right? But he's willing to suffer pain eternally on a mountain, having his liver eaten by a large bird, just to relieve us of some of the hardship of our own existence. Okay, and so again, Circe and Prometheus seem to share something. She embodies something of the Promethean suffering, right? The myth of Prometheus, the myth of Prometheus is in her, right? The story of suffering is in her. And her suffering means something, right? It means something to her. It's part of who she is now. Okay, so in the last video, I will make a shift to Odysseus and think about how all of this relates to his struggle to get home, to his homecoming. He is a kind of man of pain, a man of suffering. He identifies that way. Okay.